And we are live. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Holy Crap, the Vlogcast. Vlogcast that comes from a skeptical point of view to answer some of the questions of why. This Vlogcast started as a combination of spite and the Streisand effect because we have all kinds of fun telling everybody, yeah, we're going to peek behind the curtain because, yeah, a little dog told us to. I mean, come on, really, what better reason is there? Part of this is to follow through with the old adage, sometimes the journey is more important than the destination. I'm your main host. I'm known as Shujin Trubble all over the place, S-H-U-J-I-N. You can find me under that name pretty much anywhere you want to go looking. It's really hard to miss me. Let's go ahead and introduce you to almost a full card tonight. Almost. There's one standout. We'll tell you about that in a second. Top left-hand corner, North America, around Calgary Way. Good morning. Well, actually, good evening, Dallin.
Good evening.
Time zones, man. You'd think I'd actually have this stuff down at this point. I don't know.
The job I do, I work with people from coast to coast, and I have more trouble relating with people who are west of me than east because I'm so used to working with people from the east. I go to schedule a meeting. I'm assuming Eastern time, like, dude, we're in Seattle. Yeah. Well, that's going to be a complication now, isn't it?
I hate it when everything goes like that. Mm-hmm. Down and just a little bit to the right into the Midwest of the U.S. Good evening, Bridget.
Good evening.
South of me into Pittsburgh. Good morning, Joey.
What's so good about it?
The fact that we haven't had an extinction level event yet today.
The night is young.
I know. Continuing off to the right from a secret undisclosed location. Dallin's probably going to be smiling at that. He knows that one all too well. Secret undisclosed location outside of the DC metropolitan area, maybe. I don't know. Good morning on Renault Tech.
Good morning. I had a fart that smelled like an extinction level event.
And the TMI flag is down.
And flying in the breeze. Thank you.
Now we know the undisclosed secret location.
Yes, it's called Newark, New Jersey. From across the pond, where he doesn't have to smell it from there, out Paris, France. Good morning, Joseph.
It's just beginning to waft over. Good morning.
Perfect timing. So, yes, for those of you that are longtime watchers know full well, yes, we are down one Canadian. Well, there's a reason for that. The Canada goose population has finally gotten to Heretic Woman, and she's being nibbled to death by cats. Some people get that joke. You're welcome. She's actually, that's not too far from the truth.
Oh, jeez, dude, really?
What it comes down to is that with the new kitten, kitten's been running at 11 for the last couple of days, so she hasn't had very much sleep, and she's got a thing to do today morning. Yeah. Time zones. What are they? Anyway.
Okay, now the joke makes sense.
Yeah, any cat owner that's had one from a kitten to maturity, they can relate. I can relate.
Yeah, exactly. So she's taking the night off and perfectly fine. So we will be ragging on her incessantly, basically because you richly deserve it, you bitch. You really do.
So the theme of the show is all about Deborah?
Oh, not quite. But I will tell you this, though. I did do a recording with Jake Farwharton for the iFriends show. And one of the questions was about a scientific paper that came out that scientifically proves something about short people.
Wait a minute.
I will.
I think it was specifically men, but okay.
If I remember correctly, didn't that paper state that short people when they wear shorts, were to call them pants?
No. I will, however, go ahead and say that it was the second time during that show that I got the answer through sheer stupidity on my part. I'm not going to tell you what the other one was, but I will tell you that it was absolutely hilarious. And you're going to have to wait and find out for it. That's the iFriends show with Jake Farwharton. Go look that one up and see about that one. Anyway. Oh, it's going to be all
iFriends show. Do they use like iOS to make it or something?
I don't really remember. I don't know. And you're starting to sound really muffled. Are you okay with that microphone or what's going on? You all good?
Is that better?
That is much
Yeah.
better, yes.
Oh yeah.
I was leaning on it.
That would do it. All right. Bluetooth headset.
Stop biting the pillow before talking into the microphone.
Okay, we're moving on because this is not one of those shows right now. Anyway, so let me go ahead
Joseph,
and...
we don't need to worry about your fantasies in this show, Joe. Sorry.
We're going to continue on past all this before I have to start muting people. Yeah. So we'll get everything rolling over here. Anyway, so thank you everybody for joining us. Stephanie, I know full well that you're over in the live chat. Thank you very much. If you're watching live and you want to take advantage of the live chat, please feel free to do so. It's on some corner of your screen. For me, it's over that side right there. See? And I've got it set to live chat, so I got it right the first time. Yes. Feel very proud of myself right now. And that's going to follow through with my opening for you guys for tonight. And you'll see why. Because with 5 minutes on the clock, your 5-minute freestyle starts right now. Surprise! No, Joey, this has got nothing to do with our upcoming presidential election hopes, but that's a whole other thing for later. The thing that ended up happening was, believe it or not, I actually had a discussion, and I use the term loosely for a second, on Facebook about laws regarding voting rights and whether or not there was a morality or immorality to a specific classification of voting rights. The question had come up about people who were felons, convicted felons, who were no longer allowed to vote, except here in New York State, where the governor has set it up where felons, after whatever length of time or whatever rigmarole, are allowed to vote again. And person was upset about this and basically said, and I'm paraphrasing, that the governor was playing God. Now, leaving that aside for a second. Now, the fact that a governor can actually make the phone call and prevent someone from having the death penalty, even at literally the last minute, is some form of playing God or not, but that's neither here nor there. The question was, why, if voting is a right, why, for a felon, is that the only right that is typically a lifetime ban? Now, I know full well there are other ones that say that you are not allowed to have a Second Amendment right in this country to firearms at that point, but that is something that you could actually do damage to someone. So there's some justification where you could say we don't want somebody who's already committed something dangerous to have a dangerous weapon, and we want to curtail that. Okay, I can see an argument for that, but we're talking voting rights. This country was founded on the argument that you're taxing me and I don't have a voice in that government. That's wrong. Isn't that the same thing? A felon, and I'm going to get to that in a second because there's a piece about that too. A felon who has served their time, paid their debt to society, released, no longer is allowed to vote, even if they go ahead and set themselves up with a good paying job, legit business, and are paying taxes. Why should they be disallowed from having a voice in the government that oversees them and the culture and society that they live in? And the question was put back to me, well, that's just the way that it is. And if you don't like it, change it. Get off your ass. Oh, hold on a second. I'm not saying I want to change it. I want to say, why is it the way that it is? Well, it is the way that it is because that's the way that it is. Wow. Okay, look, I'm trying to talk through the morality of the position. I'm not looking to change it. I acknowledge that is the way that it is. And if your only answer is the tautology of it is the way that it is because that's the way it is, then you're really not understanding what I'm trying to get out at you. There was no name calling. There is no, you're the devil incarnate. There's no, you're stupid. It was implied, but I think it was much more a matter of they didn't understand where I was coming from or didn't want to acknowledge that. I am many things. I am not a well-educated man. I am a rather average person, I would think. Maybe a little bit more than average in some respects regarding how I think through various items. Because, I've got the show and I talk a lot. But I was very surprised that for once, I got into a thing and I didn't get directly insulted, even if I got a little bit of snark. And I can't believe that I'm about to say it this way. Wow. How refreshing. Maybe there is hope after all. This is episode 232 on the docket, Your Honor. Rule of Acquisition 98. I know full well Callie Wright is probably having a great field day looking at this one going, I know that one. I know that. Which one is that? I know that one. Yeah. Rule of Acquisition 98. Every man has his price. We heard the news story about the journalist who went to the Saudi embassy and did not come out in one piece, quite literally. And we are not going to end up talking about that news story because right now it is too hot. There are far too many question marks. And unfortunately, the items that are known, I'm guarding myself on this one just a little bit, are a little bit too, I have no other way of wording it, visceral right at the moment.
It's basically everything is still unfolding.
Yeah. Yeah. And I know full well that I could probably be called a bit of a hypocrite for the whole, well, when is it time to talk about gun control? Okay. I understand that argument, and I was having it in my own head. But the biggest problem is Tech just said there's far too many things that are still unfolding, and we don't have nearly enough to work off of in a really coherent way. So we're not going to talk about that one in particular. What we are going to talk about is a seeming callous indifference to human suffering for those that claim to be the moral right. Now, whether they claim it as right as in we are correct or right as in conservatives, I don't really much care. They're the ones who go ahead and say we're the ones that should be your moral yardstick, and they're anything but. So we're going to be dealing with that. Normally, I'd go ahead and pitch it over to Heretic Woman, but since she is on pussy duty tonight, I figured, well, I'm going to have to make mention of it anyway. Heretic Woman, that's two for you for tonight, you bitch. That's three. Unfortunately, other than this particular news story out of Saudi Arabia, and it's a lot of stuff. It's a lot of stuff. But as far as Rafe Badawi is concerned, at the moment, I have no new news that I was able to locate, which, again, much more the norm than not. However, that means that as of the recording of tonight's show, it is now 6 years, 4 months, 5 days since he was unjustly incarcerated for thought crime. Our hopes, our thoughts are still with you and your family. We're still waiting. But we're scared. So the news article that I linked, and I do have to give credit where credit is due, was Unrenewed Tech's doing. He fired it over to me as a reminder. I did see it come up in my news articles of P-Robes, Pat Robertson, who, Billy Joel said it right, man. Only the good die young. This guy is going to live till fucking eternity. Or at least it feels like it. Basically saying, look, we've got $100 billion in weapon sales. Let's not rock the boat and not get that money because, come on, we need that money for the economy and for, jobs, because jobs. And I have no other way of saying it. Disgusted doesn't even come close. Tech, you forwarded it over to me. I have to imagine that you had one hell of a visceral reaction to it when you saw it, and you just suddenly thought, oh yeah, I got to send this over to him.
So I had several reactions to the initial article. You can hear me okay, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So my first initial reaction was, if there is a hell, this person will have a very special place in it. And me being an atheist, assuming this hell puts atheists there, I want front row seats. Okay, that was my initial reaction. My secondary reaction was, I'm disgusted with humanity, because I realized that right now, right at this very moment, that there were people who saw that on television, and because it was coming out of his mouth, instantly agreed that the things that he was saying were right. The whole argument from authority here. And that they didn't stop and think about what he said. They never considered the implications that their religion talks about not putting gold and other things before their God. And he is telling them that in this scenario, it is more important to have gold than it is to make sure that, we are love thy neighbor and love thy brother and mother and, love one another aspect of their religion. They just didn't, it never even occurred to them to question this. And there's this bastard of a person has got so many people eating out of his palm, and they're allowing it to happen because they refuse to think for themselves. And part of that is caused by religions in general. And the other part is, like, Joseph has said before in the past, they're comfortable. They're not willing to change. They have no desire to change. I was like, guess what? Yeah, if they have no desire to change and they keep fucking this shit up, eventually the shit's going to hit the fan. They're going to want change, and it's going to be too late.
Well, they're listening to him because he's their survival guide, basically.
Right.
And
he's really going to get them killed.
Well, yeah, but they don't, I don't think they even realize it.
No, and that's the thing. Because he's doing it through a television, they're not even there to see the results of their actions. They can't quantify it. It doesn't smack them upside the head and say, look, you're being a horrible human being by contributing to this man here. You are causing this kind of harm here. Your lack of ability to think for yourself, to question the things around you, to be skeptical, is harming your life in these numerous ways. It may be on the family level. It may be with your friends. It may be with just the interactions at the person bagging their groceries at the grocery store, depending on who they interact with. But by following him, they are becoming very toxic people to society as a whole.
See, what it comes down to is, and this is something that I have to put it this way because it's been put this way over and over and over a time with all of these campaign stops that the current president has been doing since he has been elected. Thanks, by the way. Piss off. It's a cult. It's a cult of personality. You were going to go ahead and you're going to believe what you've been told to believe because you've been told to believe it. And, you know, as many times as I say, it's because you were taught wrong. I can't put it any much better than this. Bridget, I'm coming over to you because you're the case model on this one. When you've been taught wrong, it's you said before, and please by all means explain it a little further. It is scary as all hell to try to break out of all of that once the cracks start to have happen.
Yeah, it is. But I think the other piece that people are not looking at, in addition to the arms deal and all that other stuff, is this journalist is seen as lesser than, one, because it's journalist, and we've heard our POTUS, our piece of shit POTUS, call to body slam journalists, to kill some of them just because he doesn't like what they say. And this particular journalist was probably a Muslim too, so that makes it a lesser person or a lesser being than, some, I don't know, military hero or something.
But before you get too far from it, you said coming out of it was a scary thing. Well, where is that fear coming from?
Because if you are suddenly in a position where everything that you've been told is wrong, you have nothing left to stand on at the moment because you don't know anything else. Because
that's interesting, because like I've always, I think we've been over this enough times to understand that, the religion isn't really about, it's not about the Bible or the God or whatever. All these things are just accessories to, as Shujin called it, a personality cult. And It's about following the person who is actually responsible for the survival of the following. And I put that between scare quotes, but the following, they're depending on him for their survival. And I'm talking like not consciously, almost instinctively. So when they find themselves without their leader, decider, protector, whatever, they are going to be scared without their survival model. Mm-hmm. And they're going to be scared even if their survival model, or their leader, is brought into question, which is why that explains a lot of the visceral reaction we get from a lot of right-wingers when they're confronted.
Yeah, well, I would think it would be the same kind of fear that anybody would have, like yourself, Joseph, if someone were to snatch you up in the middle of the night unexpectedly and take you off to a Middle Eastern country where you don't know the language, you don't know the people, you don't know the customs, and just dump you down there.
I don't think it's the same fear as leaving a religion.
It is.
Yeah, it is.
It is. There's an underlying dread that.
No, but I think the context. Really, you have to. I don't like that comparison, because you really have to.
It's a similar comparison.
It's a similar visceral fear.
No, but the comparison there, I don't think it's a good one. No,
it is a good one in one respect, because one of the things that you talk about, Joseph, is that the leader is the survivor leader, correct? They guide to survival. Mm-hmm. Well, when you're leaving a religion that has told you by following the religion that if you follow the religion and you're a good boy or good girl or a good whatever, that when you die, you're going to get all these rewards, and you're going to live forever and happy and everything else. And then you get that rug pulled out from underneath you. And now you realize, when I die, there's nothing after this. I'm gone for good. That's the same as getting dumped in a country where you are not wanted. You are not you are specifically targeted. In this case, I'm talking about Americans in certain countries would.
Okay, you're working hard to tie those together, but I'm talking about
fear basically of I'm going to die, and it's the same kind of fear, except the difference is, in one case it's mental, psychological, and in another case it's a physical representation. It still creates existential dread, and that's the problem.
Yeah, let me take this.
I don't have that fear, frankly, to be in another country or whatever.
You're lucky that you're not afraid to be dropped in the middle of a desert surrounded by people who want to kill you because you're an American.
Well, no, yeah, leaving a religion.
Well, I'm trying to just explain the sense of being displaced and lost and not understanding what to do from there.
Actually, if I can try.
I do say that exists. I do agree that exists because, I mean, a lot of the people, even after they leave religion, they have this fear, like university campuses and stuff like that, you know, like people who want absolutely to conform to a dictate, a model. They're looking for one, just something to hang on to, like a life preserver. I do understand that part of it. Yes. Sorry, Alan.
No, it's okay. I was thinking more. Actually, when the conversation first started, I began thinking of the Truman Show, where the guy finally realizes that his entire life is a lie. Although I'll grant you, the end of that movie was far more saccharine than I think a lot of people would have expected. But and I know this one's been used before by a lot of people, but The Matrix. You know, you go from your semi-quasi comfortable life, you know, you've got a house, you've got a job, you're making a living, you're doing your thing, you know, or as Mr. Smith would put it, you're paying your taxes. That seemed to be a rolling thing in that series. But anyways, but then suddenly you wake up and realize that your entire life was a lie, and you are ill-prepared to deal with the aftermath. In other words, all of your formerly known survival techniques will not work in this new context.
Yeah, I'm gonna dovetail off of that for a second to kind of take this in a slightly less downer position, because there's another piece that's even more important than the whole existential dread of annihilation. For non-being, for lack of a better way of putting it for a second. But the societal position that one would have. If you're taught from effectively infancy, and this is speaking as a second generation off the boat Roman Catholic Italian child born in Brooklyn that I was. So now you know a lot more about me than you used to. Imagine that. Yes, and so tonight I'm actually drinking some wine because I didn't think to buy any beer tonight. Shut up, leave me alone.
Did you bring any crackers?
No, I didn't. I had a lot of
crack.
Not going there. The where I'm going with this is, if you were taught from infancy, effectively, that, well, I'm going to borrow something from Babylon 5, and J. Michael Straczynski can have a chuckle at it later. The church is mother, the church is father, in addition to or on par with your actual mother and father, whether biological or otherwise, for lack of a better, for a moment.
Even above.
In some cases above, yes.
Like you hear some certain families, like especially, I've seen certain interviews where especially people victims of child abuse, they were talking about the actual priest who was abusing them coming to visit the family home, and like the mother was almost aware of it, but she would like defer to the priest almost as though he was God, and that was almost the exact words that they used.
Yeah, there's stuff like that from the 50s that I can remember that you didn't.
And it goes back even further than that, where priests and such could come by and tell you, your soul is going to hell, and this is back before people were, the common man was literate. And they could literally tell them, hey, look, if you don't do this, your soul's going to hell. And they'd go and do it, even if it wasn't in the book.
Your salvation is in my pants.
Yeah, and it doesn't even have to go that far back. We have reports currently of children in Africa who are being massacred because they are accused of witchcraft.
Mm-hmm.
Children, 9-year-old girl who was saved by a reporter, if I remember right, a couple years ago, from being killed because somebody thought that she spoke to the animals. I don't remember what the hell the bullshit was, but bottom line, it was bullshit. Pure and simple. But if you're in a religion to this extent, I'm not calling it a cult yet, a religion to this extent, where your place in society, in your family, is contingent upon you towing the line and believing in all this, when you are taught that's the way that it is and this is the truth from infancy and nothing tells you otherwise until you're finally able to start peeking out, you start getting into your teens and questions start niggling in your head, you kind of, like Bridget said, you kind of end up being ill prepared for all the stuff that you suddenly find out that, wait, that's not what the color blue actually is. The red dot isn't actually moving on the wall. Some people who were psychology students get that particular one. Thank you. It's absolutely mind-numbing to me to realize that there are still people who simply will not do the proper examination when they're shown it in stark contrast of black and whites and put on the God glasses and say, nope, can't see nothing. I'm Mr. Magoo at this point. I don't care.
They can't. I don't think they can. They never learn. I mean, that's part of growing up as, this existential angst you're talking about is like, it's coming to the realization that you're just following a pattern without really understanding it. And then from time to time, as you're growing up, everything you've learned comes into questions. And I mean, it happens a few times to all of us before we learn that, well, every situation is one that has to be judged individually. There's no fixed pattern. There's no fixed model. And yeah, sometimes it takes a lot of work and, being responsible for one's own survival. I mean, that's part of growing up. But a lot of people, they don't transition into that. And I mean, it really comes down to being responsible for your own survival.
And it doesn't even necessarily need to be your physical survival. It could be your emotional, your societal.
Being responsible for yourself, for your own decisions, for everything. Just to transition, like somebody like living alone in the jungle. Are you going to travel huddled in a pack around a leader, decider, follower, hunter, gatherer, or whatever? Or are you going to learn to fend for yourself, And most of humanity, unfortunately, chooses the pack model.
All right, to be fair, though, the quote-unquote pack model isn't necessarily itself a bad thing if it's successful.
Education-wise, but normally you should learn something from a pack. I mean, that's a good way to transition, like to transfer information and all that. But once you learn something, you should have understanding of what you learned, and that knowledge becomes yours. Mm-hmm. But just mindlessly obeying a model again and again and again without having understanding of it, that's something completely different.
Yeah. It is. But again, if the model is successful, there's no drive to change it.
You see, religion.
So that's what totalitarianism relies on. That thing, because it conform to the model and it'll work. If everybody follows this exact model, it'll work perfectly. I mean, that's the base of that's a description of totalitarianism.
I don't disagree, but again, if it works, why change it? Tech, you were going to say?
I was going to say religion had its place in the beginning, a way to convey instruction and guidance, and it's something similar to religion was bound to happen in early on, but we should have emotionally evolved and matured past religion. The problem is that things there were people out there who had figured out that by using religion, they could control people. And so they've been evolving it and manipulating it to the point where it was able to retain lots of people. Okay. We need to move past religion. We have no reason for it anymore. We don't understand everything, and we don't have an answer for everything. But we know that religion's not the answer at this point. We do know how certain things in our bodies and in our world and in our universe work. We're learning more about them every day. We're understanding more about medicines and human psychology, the human heart, the human condition. We understand how to be a true humanist to our fellow man and women. Regardless of what nation they're from, what gender they're from, what gender they identify as. We don't need religion guiding us in this anymore. It's an archaic model that has reached its end of life a long time ago, and we need to let it die. The problem is there's too many people in positions of power and authority who won't let it.
And it comes down to not just religion. It comes down to, when all is said and done, greed.
Well,
that too.
It goes beyond religion. I mean, it goes to that's why I hate this apologist accusation so much against atheists, that the communist regime was atheist, because the irony is that the communist regime was the religion. It's basically humans telling other humans what to do. It's just a religion and this communist system. They're just different forms of totalitarianism.
The only difference between what we consider religion and a communist state is that the God is now the person standing on the pulpit, not the person on the standing pulpit talking for an invisible sky daddy.
And that's the thing, because it's not, discussions about the content of the Bible and all this. After a while thinking about this, that kind of thing becomes annoying, because you come to realize it's not about the book, it's about the guy holding it.
Yeah.
Whether it be the little red book, whether it be whatever it is.
Yeah. And that's the really sad thing about this whole issue, is that, P. Robes is the guy holding the book, and he goes and says something like this, which is, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but did not one of the originators of Robertson's version of religion, were they not the ones that were involved in trying to take back a particular city or a particular area of land from a bunch of people who share the same kind of religion that's in Saudi Arabia? A few thousand years ago.
A couple hundred, if you're thinking of a several letter word starting with the letter crusade. I'm pretty sure I know which one you're talking about.
Yeah, and we all know how well that went. Spoiler: it didn't go well for the Christian side. So now here's a guy who idealistically should be against Saudi Arabia because they're not worshiping the one true God. And sorry, I just need to wipe my mouth here. A little sarcasm. Sorry. Basically saying, well, as long as the deal involves, money and everything, that's $100 billion. That's an awful lot. And okay, fine. So their extended price, their tax on the purchase was the life of this man who was calling them out for being the savages that they are, that, I do every day here on the 700 Club.
And see, the one good thing that Mr. P. Robes did for us is he identified exactly what dollar amount he would accept to allow atrocities to happen that were recorded, regardless of what's going on right now. The journalist was not only killed but dismembered. That part's fact right now. and be okay with that. So we know his limit now, and there's a dollar sign attached to it. Now, last time I checked, that wasn't very godly.
No, not very at all.
Even if regardless of what the dollar amount is, the fact that there's a dollar amount attached says it right there. There it is, folks. Any of you who are watching this who have ever watched any of Mr. Pat Robertson's shit on television, you now know that he is not a godly man. That's it. End of story. End of story.
Yeah, Bridget, you've dealt with numbers with human. Let's just call it suffering for the time being. $100 billion. I'm pretty sure you've seen at least one voucher come through that is less than $100 billion in payouts for treatment, right? At least one?
Yeah. I don't think I've ever seen a bill for $100 billion. I have seen some for, a couple of $1 million, but that's usually for very, very sick babies.
So let me put it out there this way. Your integrity is on the line. And you have your choice. You can either allow one person to die and you earn a very large sum of money for your an organization that you're part of, or you can say, no, I don't want your blood money on principle alone.
All right. That would be me, but
Now, I want to pitch it to both you and Joey for a second from the military aspect, because Joey reminded me last week before, of the big I word, integrity. And when he reminded me of it in the text chat, he used all caps so that I would not miss it. And rightly so. Integrity is something that I'm quite certain, and forgive me if there's a pun in here, I don't mean it, is drilled into you early on, that you are supposed to hold some form, hold yourself to a higher standard, that you should be a bastion of being able to show people how to live honorably. This, I'm not completely off base with this, right? Again, no puns intended.
Yeah, sadly, there are no training exercises, no way to give someone integrity. The only thing you can do is tell them, look, I mean, you got choices to make. Integrity is a choice. It can't be drilled into you. It can't be trained into you. You have to make the conscious choice to tell the truth, do what's right, both, legally and morally.
Knowing that sometimes those are two different things.
That is exactly. I mean, clearest picture of the difference between a moral and a legal right is something that we soldiers don't often have to deal with, but it does come up from time to time, and that is unlawful orders.
And that is a big deal, because that is something that okay, I'm gonna say this very carefully. That is an issue that should not ever become an issue. One would expect. But I'm sure that at some point, somebody had to basically say, no. But I also have to believe that that is incredibly few and far between for something like that to have happened. I don't know if either one of you have ever heard of something like that having happened. Actually, you know what? There is one. There is one that I can think of. Not exactly, but sort of. Back 1980. What was it? 83? Jesus, I gotta look this guy up again. The Russian, the guy that was in charge of watching over the poles with the Russian radar, looking for first strike information, and he thought that he spotted a first strike coming over from the US and saw that it was one missile on the radar. And he said, no, this is a mistake. This is a problem in the machinery. They would never send just a single missile. And here's a second one. No, that's still a problem because they would never send 2 missiles. No, if they're going to do a first strike, and he basically kept World War III from having happened back in the 80s. And we owe him a monstrous debt. But that's a whole other thing. He basically went against the orders that he had otherwise that said, if something comes over, you call us, we'll press the button, done. And he made the call and probably saved humanity. And you're right, that is not something that you can just drill into somebody. So I really wasn't thinking of it. And now I've got the scenes from Deadpool in my head from Colossus. 4 or 5 moments is all it takes to be a hero. Maybe I'll see if I can find that particular link.
As you can imagine, this particular item is a very sensitive subject, and so I am currently trying to find a direct example of an unlawful order case in military history, and I'm looking for it right now. And like I said, it's a very delicate matter, which is why I'm having such a hard time actually trying to find documentation of one.
Yeah, like I said, for it to be to have gotten to that point, I can well imagine it would have to be like really, really tough to deal with. For what it's worth, if you find, great. If you don't worry too much about it. But Stephanie has also said, and I will accept the hit on this one, integrity. You put P-robes and integrity in the same sentence.
Yeah.
I don't think the word means what you think it means.
No. I can put 2 of them together in order to say there is a lack of, or perhaps I should say more appropriately, a distinct lack of. How about a disturbing lack of? That's probably a little bit closer to the truth.
Okay, I'm not one for tinfoil hats, but I do have to wonder about this. No, we've already said Robertson is a voice of authority. What he says, his people will consume without question, without a thought, without batting an eye. Disturbing as this might be, like, okay, if I was a regular member of the 700 Club or whatever, and I heard him say this, that would probably be the start of my journey towards being here right now. Because
one can hope.
Well, but the thing is, it goes against everything that, I, as one of those sheep, would have been led to believe. But now imagine if he'd done the integral, and I use that term loosely, thing, and denounced what had happened. Saying that this is, it is the money changers in the temple type of thing. Like he goes off on some Jesus thing about it. And if his listener base was so disillusioned with what the government was doing, especially with midterms coming up. So he's probably thinking that, well, Trump is going to save us because I've said he's going to save us. So I better not rock the boat too much because, well, we got an election coming up here right away.
Oh, it gets worse.
You're talking about the gambler's dilemma.
But you're putting a follower mentality into Robertson's mouth in a way. Because Robertson, well, he just wants Trump in because
Trump is not going to, Trump's not going to rock the boat.
Trump is allowing the dumbing down of America, and that's exactly what these religious leaders want. Yeah, and aren't the evangelicals the one that Herod, God put him in charge? So now they're going to go ahead and they're going to turn around and say, "Oh, by the way, this that's the followers." Yeah, like I said, the evangelicals are the ones who have been saying and trumpeting. But it's really important to make a distinction between evangelical leaders and evangelical followers. Oh,
okay. I think I know where Joey's going with this. You've got the followers going, hey, all my leaders are telling me this man is a man of God. He was chosen by God. Therefore, I need to vote for him. Where I think he's going with where the evangelical leaders are going, oh, look, this guy is going to do the things that accomplish the things that we want because he's got people following him. If we give him our support and we tell people to vote for him, he's going to do stupid shit that's going to cause them to become more dumb, which makes our jobs easier.
Okay.
Exactly. Basically, dude, I can't believe we're on the same wavelength for a change. That's weird.
We usually are, but we just, it's just context. Context is important.
All right.
Let's put it that way.
I'm going to take it beyond that. Some of the evangelicals are dominionists. And part of their agenda is to not only dumb people down, but take us back to medieval times.
Okay, I'm not familiar with dominionists.
It's a bunch of, okay, I'm going to put this brutally, but I mean, really, a lot of these religious leaders are just basically, they're not operating at a very performing level. Not highly educated, not highly, they got Sky Daddy stories. That's their
they don't have to either. That's the problem.
And it's making other people lesser than they are. That's their entire goal, to make them manageable, quote unquote.
Unfortunately, I cannot find an example of a unlawful order being disobeyed, and it comes out to be a positive outcome for the soldier who did the morally right thing, unfortunately. So I'm going to have to throw Godwin's law out the window and bring up Nuremberg.
Yep.
The Nuremberg defense is what is referred to as when soldiers are put on trial and their argument is just, I was just following orders. And we saw what happened during the Nuremberg trials.
Yep.
Following orders or not, it doesn't matter. You knew it was wrong.
Yep. And I can't believe I'm going to say it this way. There should be a counter argument that explains just how incredibly wrong it is. And the sad part of it is, it's a Captain Picard quote all over again because, oh my God, you guys had such great writers too damned many times in the later seasons. I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to be the one to drop it yet.
But then again, Patrick Stewart.
Agreed, but he was the one delivering. He wasn't the one writing. So there's a whole other thing there.
Delivery is half the message.
It's true. That's true. The idea of I was just following orders is not sufficient. But anybody can just follow orders. But if you are a person with your own agency, you need to be able to, oh God, there is the problem, isn't it? So basically but that's it, because basically what Nuremberg would like, he would like everybody to be their own, to be responsible for themselves, to have autonomous thought. But when you're in this kind of like totalitarian system, let's put it a hierarchical
ranking system, you're not supposed to concern yourselves with moral judgments and things like that. You don't make it. You just don't go there. If you're part of the system, you don't go there. Otherwise, you're going to be going against the system. So, asking every individual soldier to have moral judgments is a good thing, but not for the system. I don't know if I'm being clear there.
I don't know.
We're talking about two different systems. We're talking about, like Nuremberg and all that. They're taking an optimal moral judgment, individual moral judgment, and trying to apply it to a military system where that is completely absent. And I've never seen the difference between critical thought and non-critical thought more clearly defined between the NCOs and the officers. I mean, that's where the dividing line is in an army operation, as far as I know. There's very little critical thought in the NCO ranks. They're not supposed to go there, anyways.
Well,
it's not made for that. Let's put it that way. Sorry.
There's a big context for this. I not too very long ago, I joked with Dallin and Joey about something that I'm going to word it this way for a reason. That I heard from someone who was in the Air Force. I'm not naming names for a damned good reason, just because. I don't know that the person in particular would necessarily want this to go out. But the story was that this person was in the major. I forget what their position was at that point. Major or colonel, lieutenant colonel, I think. Anyway, it was an upper up, and they were dealing with an Air Force base, and they were going to be dealing with stuff that was going to be going on for the rest of the week. And they're in, around the big conference table, and all the guys are in charge are over there, and first lieutenant is over there who's supposed to be in charge of running the sergeants and guys in lower, and first lieutenant basically goes ahead and answers and says, yes, okay, so this is what we're going to do. We're going to do this. We're going to do this, but we can't do this because we can't do that. Because do that. And the guy in question stopped and basically said, Lieutenant, hold on a second, and turned and looked over to the sergeant and said, Sarge, what's the real story? And Joey basically told me at the time, yeah, that's pretty much how it works, right?
Let me sum it up for you.
Yeah.
Officers are commissioned by Congress. An officer in the military holds an official position in the United States government. That is what gives them the authority to do the things that they need to do in the interests of the U.S. government. Same reason why an officer will always be the one to command a ship, a ship, or typically when it's a single-seater plane, it's an officer flying it because that is an asset of the United States. And so it requires an officiate of the United States to be employed. Officers are the ones that make the decisions on what needs to be done, whereas non-commissioned officers, NCOs, are the ones who have come up from the ranks, who have spent the years in the military, learning things, getting the experience. They're the ones that decide how it gets done.
They are the salt of the earth.
Yeah, and Joe, over in the chat, what I put for you, that sound about right?
Let me see.
Yep.
Well, no, and
that would probably be like the E1s, E2s, E3s.
Yeah, E1 through E4. Those are what we typically refer to as grunts. NCOs are a class unto themselves, and the I mean, you have to go to a board to become an NCO. When you're a specialist E4 and you have enough time and rank and time and service, and you've done all your training and taken all your classes to become an NCO, the final thing you have to do is go in front of a board. And I believe there's only one officer that sits on this board. Everybody else on the board are NCOs. Sergeant majors, first sergeants, master sergeants, sergeant first classes. They're the ones that evaluate you and determine whether or not you're ready for that responsibility.
And Bridget, you were chuckling and having a good thought about that one. I gotta imagine that you've got some particular position on this one, because, like we're saying, I mean, I
just want to ask one question to Joe. So you'd say they're in a way they're transitionary between the two?
Well, an E4 would be.
Like I said, officers are the ones to decide what needs to get done. NCOs are the ones that figure out how it gets done, and then your grunts are the ones that make it happen.
Yeah.
My dad was telling me.
It derailed me. I had something important to say, and now I can't remember what it was.
Sorry.
Is it just me, or is there some sort of understanding between the upper NCOs and the officers?
Not always.
Well, not always, but here's the thing. No officer worth his bars or his stars is ever going to dismiss the opinions of the NCOs under his command. That is why, for a company level, you always have a captain and you have a first sergeant. That is why at the platoon level, you have a lieutenant and you have the sergeant first class, the platoon sergeant.
Yeah, and if there's one thing that I learned from that particular person's experience, you don't necessarily want the guy that's specifically book smart, and you guys might see where I'm going with this one. You don't want the guy that's book smart and spewing off everything according to the book, according to the regs. You want somebody that's going to go ahead and say, okay, look, I know the book says this, but here's what really is going to have happen in order for things to actually happen.
Good
because
example.
I know how things actually work.
Good example. Do you want somebody who just got out of school and just took his test and aced his test and has all of the cohesive knowledge of how to fix your car but has never touched a car in his life? Or do you want somebody who's never even been to school but has fixed dozens of cars in his life working on your car?
Another good example. Dallin, perfect example. Who would you rather trust? A guy that's gotten all of his A+ on every Microsoft test back to back, never worked a week in a shop? Or would you want the guy that came up on a Commie 64 programming a 300 baud modem in assembly language and all the way up through everything and up through everything?
I mean, yeah. Plain and simple, to just illustrate how important this is. In the military, the highest rank an officer can achieve, and even though we don't issue that rank anymore, or at least haven't had reason to, is a 5-star general of the Army.
Well, as I recall, there's only one person that's been granted that, and
there have been 2, and only one person can ever hold that rank at any given time. However, even when there isn't a general of the Army, there is always a sergeant major of the Army. And he is the highest ranking non-commissioned official throughout the Army.
Okay.
Let me put it this way. Nothing happens in the Army without the Sergeant Major of the Army hearing about it first.
Fair enough. I'm sorry.
NCOs are so critically important that once you have become an NCO, once you have been given your stripes, it takes an act of Congress to take them away from you. They can't just demote you.
Fair enough. And I finally found the piece I was looking for, because I had remembered that 5-star general was what they had posthumously promoted George Washington to. But
Yes.
then when you mentioned about the 5, I remembered that the whole big thing was you can't have anybody higher than George Washington because reasons. I finally looked it up. Yeah, he was promoted to a 6-star back in 1776 because, I mean, because he's got to be bigger than everybody else. Now, with all of that rigmarole out of the way, to kind of put context on the whole damn thing, it comes down to who are you going to believe and why? And if the question is, I'm going to believe whatever is going to earn me the most capital, and I'm not saying money, I'm saying capital, for any reason, for every reason, then we have a real serious disagreement on what morality is all about. Because I can, you know what? I'm gonna drop the bomb for this one. I can guarantee you there is not a single one of us on this panel, and I know I'm sticking my neck out really hard on this one, not a single one of us on this panel that would allow someone to come to harm so that we could earn capital. Could be money, could be a promotion, it could be authority over somebody or something or someone, it could be material addition. I don't think any one of us would allow someone to come to harm so that we could benefit.
I am not a godly person. I
have my moments of greed and selfishness and everything else.
And
you're eating your pillow.
Yeah, you're leading.
Hold on. Any long-term listener of the show will have picked up on the fact that I don't like my son's mother at all, in any way, shape, or form. In fact, I hate the woman. She's a very horrible human being, in my opinion. She has done much harm to me and my son, in my opinion. If she was standing out in the middle of a road and a bus was coming to hit her, and I was told that if I allow the bus to hit her, and I didn't warn her, that they were going to give me something in return, anything at all. I just had to not do anything. The easiest thing in the world, not act. I'd still yell at her to get out of the way of the bus. I may not put myself in harm's way to push her out of the way, but I would at least yell, "Hey, bus, move." And I'm not, in my opinion, a great person.
Yep. I've heard, you guys might have heard this one, might not have. I've heard on several occasions. Sorry, yes?
Yeah, once you have a sense of, once you make your own value judgments and you have a sense of empathy, it's kind of hard to unlearn it in any situation.
Yeah.
Because instead of comparing and projecting, as many followers do, you learn to, you have understanding of what any given situation feels like. Once you learn to apply that to others as a means of survival, or be responsible for your own survival, you just can't undo that. You can't, no matter how bad they are, another human, you can't keep yourself from empathizing in a way.
Yeah, I was going to say that for a little while, actually for quite a long time, I've caught clips and shows from the atheist experience of Austin. For those of you that are not at all familiar with it, great resource, great show that they've been running for a very, very long time. And their main host is a gentleman by the name of Matt Dillahunty. He is a wonderful font of information to just sit back and listen to the way that he runs through various arguments. And there's a piece of that comes up every once in a while about morality, and something that he has said that has really resonated to me, and I think it's a piece that's kind of worthwhile here. Morality is subjective. We make for ourselves determinations of what is moral and what is not. But you have to have an objective stick to measure it by.
Oh, no.
But hold on. But you choose for yourself what that stick is. You put a stick in the sand. That is your baseline point. That's what matters to you.
Line in the sand.
Line in the sand.
Whatever.
Yeah, stick in the sand. But really, if it's not subjective, then it's dictate.
Wait.
So why do we need to dictate? Dictate. We can because if we make our own value judgments, that's how we actually judge a dictate. That's how we judge whether the Bible is moral or not.
All right. So here's the point. The line in the sand, the milepost that you walk off of everything else from, is whatever is your ultimate point of importance. And for him, morality is based off of the well-being of others and for himself as part of that group.
Yourself, that underline that, because I'd like to argue also that many followers, they only have a sense of what's good for their own survival. You know, this kind of like care about your fellow human and all this. I'd almost want to say that they're going through motions, like filling a role, like obeying orders, basically, and all on the goal of their own well-being. Okay, they don't have the sense of empathy towards the other human, and it's just. And I'd also like to draw that back again to autonomous thought and autonomous survival. It's all linked.
Okay, well, enough a point, but let me get my point out first before you go ahead and start trashing me. All right?
I'm not trashing you.
Anyway,
I'm actually agreeing with you.
So his
context is important.
Do I have to actually mute your ass now? Shut up. Let me get my thing out.
I'm done.
Anyway. So his point was, if you want to take your basis of morality as what is going to be for the betterment of people in general and myself as part of that group, to benefit as many people and hinder as few people as possible, to make more people well and prosperous and fewer people disenfranchised or pushed down from all of that, that is something that I can now base what I do or what others do against that signpost. For instance, is it a good thing to murder someone? Well, that's not good for that person because, well, they're dead. So not murdering somebody would tend to be the better choice.
Are you just talking about education? Because it's one thing to, like I said before, it's one thing to obey an order, a model, quote unquote moral judgment, and it's quite another to understand it. So like when we're growing up, what our parents are going to give us quote unquote moral lessons or whatever. But if we're autonomous thinkers, if we can think for ourselves, then we're going to test these things and, you know, validate them or disqualify them or whatever. So basically you're talking about your yardstick or stick in the sand or line in the sand or whatever is basically the education that we base our
And funny enough, you've actually helped me move the point along because of exactly what Joey had said earlier. Joey, you had said you can't teach morality. You can't teach integrity, but you can show by example and explain how you determine whether or not you are working in conjunction with or to that end. Yes.
And that's a scientific method, actually,
I would say,
because this has been tried and tested until now.
You can instill it, and you can lead by example, but there's nothing. It's not like, upper body strength where you can train by simply doing reps every day at the gym. You can't do that with integrity.
Agreed.
You have to. I mean, yes, your upbringing has a pretty serious effect on your integrity.
Now, we know that empathy is not a specifically human trait. We've heard on many an occasion things like rats who will show empathy and sympathy and will free other rats that are in distress, even if they could go ahead and get a treat first, but will instead choose to free another rat and share the treat afterwards. We've seen these biological experiments. Bridget, you know full well. We've talked about that before. I have to know that at some points you've seen some of these behavioral things in like psychology books or something to those effects. No?
Yeah. What would you like me to elaborate on?
Any piece that you can kill time with is fine by me.
Not even looking at books. Empathy is a natural trait amongst humans and animals and all that. But
babies.
Babies too. So is fear.
It's an interesting question to this is one we're still trying to determine the line between genetic transition and education, because I mean, like empathy in animals. Well, if I was going to write a computer routine where a certain application would have greater success in numbers, that would survive until the next generation of it. Yeah, I'm losing myself through the bad analogy. I'm sorry.
No. It's exactly right, because a trait that helps fewer die is going to continue on to the next grouping. And the reason why I specifically bring up rats and babies is because both rats and babies typically do not have their own society to work through. Now, yes, babies do have their parents and what they are starting to learn from all that, but we've got the examples of toddlers just a few months old, and Bridget, maybe you might remember this one. I remember from psychology books where babies who are a couple months old crawling are put on a tabletop with a piece of glass on top that extends out from it, so that if they look down, it looks like they're going to fall, but they aren't going to fall, but they just instinctually pull away from that edge, even though there's no way that they could fall.
Mm-hmm.
We've got a set of, we've got default. Okay, that's where it comes in, because the genetic is our quote unquote default reactions to things, and that's our childhood. And, we're supposed to transition out of that. Because when we follow our basic human evolution, we've evolved over millions of years to be, hunting, gathering in small clans and all that. That's, that's how we evolved. So that's our genetic default behavior. But since very recently, like 15,000 years, which in an evolutionary scale is absolutely nothing, we're living in greater numbers. So we can't adhere to the quote unquote former model anymore. So we've developed a set of new standards that doesn't necessarily it's actually in conflict with our basic genetic programming.
Sure.
So we have to grow up in other ways. We have to, the education you were talking about before, that's part of it, learning what our shortcomings are and overcoming them and testing things for ourselves.
But that's something that we are actually doing societally. And we don't have too much of it.
But religions take this actual ability away from humans, the ability to decide for yourself what's good for your own survival and what's good for others. And they do it all, quote unquote, for you for a hefty price.
But the problem is, as we know full well, and as Bridget will start chuckling about, in the current day and age, the information age, that hold is becoming more and more tenuous every gigabyte of data that's consumed. Because, as they say, you can't stop the signal, Mal. You can't stop the signal. Sooner or later, the education is going to get in because curiosity is one hell of a driving factor.
Alternative survival models. That's what triggers the transition. Seeing other options. It's funny about religion. You have a great point there, is because most religions rely on a local clan kind of environment.
Being insular.
Yeah, isolated.
Insular. God, I can't. It's not the wine that's making me not say it. I just can't say the word for some reason. Insular. Shit. Finally, get it out. Thank you. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. It's a word that I don't normally use, but shit, it's like, I would like to be able to say a right word once in a while. Fuck. Now I know how Cash used to feel. Oh god, there's a callback. Shit. Anyway, so bring this kind of. I keep forgetting that my clock is over on this side. I have to be looking over here. Okay, so we got about half an hour. All right. So the problem that we've run into is that, as Joseph said, in the equivalent blink of an eye, evolutionarily speaking, we have gone from the beginnings of farming and agriculture to skyscrapers that, well, are completely foreign in everything to anything that we could have even dreamed of back at the day.
Not exactly that, but like, for example, in the former hunter-gatherer days, like men, like their behavior, basically, well, men are, I'm sorry to say, by default, they have rapey urges. They're like, this is why Muslims, they bag their woman, rather than give men the ability to overcome their own default instincts. They would rather remove everything from the equation that would trigger them. And it comes back to self-governance, but our default instincts. Yeah, I'm repeating myself.
No, that's okay. You're actually kind of helped me over to this, and there's something over in the live chat I'm going to get to in just a second because it ties into.
You mentioned progress in terms of human history.
Yeah, which is where we're going to be going.
Right, and if you look at technological progress of humanity, acceleration of our technology, both in medical science and industry, and every respect that you can think of, and you watch its slow progression and its rise and everything else, there's a period in history where it suddenly stopped, went back a little bit, and took a long time to recover from.
The Dark Ages.
Exactly. And guess where some people are trying to get us to go back to? Imagine where we could have been today.
Back when humans were manageable.
Imagine where we would be today if we never had the Dark Ages.
Oh, that one's easy. We'd be in the steampunk era, but that's a whole other thing. Hold on a second.
I have a thought though. Just kind of irony. And if it was religion that actually prevented humanity from transitioning to AI?
Is that a question for me?
Well, it's not a question. It's just a thought. I mean, the Dark Ages, because we would have, with the Enlightenment, look what happened since the Enlightenment, how quickly human progress has been.
Even if we didn't develop AI by now, maybe we would have developed a cure for cancer by now. Or maybe with failing a cure for cancer, we were able to sufficiently microsize our technology to make nano robots that were sufficiently advanced enough that they could go into the human body and selectively target the cancers without actually needing chemicals that cause us to lose our hair and our lunch and body weight and possible other negative side effects. There's so many what ifs that could have potentially been possible by now if we hadn't lost that time in human history.
Now, to be fair, to kind of go off of that really quickly, it is possible that we are in that transitory period between we didn't have anything that actually handled cancer to we have nanomachines that take care of that, and we're just in the evolutionary, technologically speaking, transition between those 2 points. We can hope, but be that as it may for a second. What I was trying to get to was that, like I said, 15,000 years from early agriculture to the technological marvel that is magic, or would have been completely incomprehensible back in the day. And we have, at every stage, had new layers of information exchange. And as that happens, new pieces come out, newer learning happens, and fewer and fewer tendrils for organized religion start to have happen. I give you really quickly, first off, the first printing press of the Bible in local languages, which was a very bad thing. The 95 Theses that was hammered onto the door that basically said, hey, I'm going to tell you all of why this is all bullshit and why you shouldn't be doing it. And yes, Joey, I'm specifically thinking of the video, but that's a whole other thing for later. But over in the live chat, Prancing Doe, which, by the way, thank you for joining us and your thing. Prancing Doe put this, 2 pieces. One, what is said is how many follow religions that have you shall not kill, yet they killed millions throughout their reigns and still do. Second part, human nature to be greedy, and a lot of people put themselves in power using religion as their weapon, successfully, no less. True. And that's why earlier I was saying we, as a group, would not allow someone to come to harm so that we could earn capital in any way, whether it be money or riches or material possessions or creature comforts, let's go ahead and say. Although there are those groups that will say perfectly valid to go ahead and have.
You're talking about living at other people's expense.
Yep. And I've got somebody that I know full well is going to go ahead and get Dallin to go ahead and finally chime in and be, all I need is 2 words. Joel fucking Osteen. See? Did I call it? Did I call it or not? See? 1 for me. Right there.
I don't think I have enough caffeine for this.
Oh, you're going to have to. Go ahead, Dallin.
Osteen is one of many who they specialize. Even P-Robes is living off of other people's expense. Any of these people. Jim Baker. Now, I mean, this guy is the living embodiment of, I want to say cognitive dissonance, but of just how myopic people can be. I mean, did not this guy go to jail years and years ago for something?
Jim Baker did.
Yeah.
And I don't remember if it was fraud or embezzlement. It was something.
Yeah, but I mean, people like him or Eric Hovind, who didn't pay his taxes, you know, they've been disgraced. They've been shown to be the hypocrites and generally bad people, not worthy of being followed.
To people who know how to make value judgments for themselves, not to their following. Their following, I'm sorry, they don't put two and two together. They don't.
No. And same with Peter Popoff.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Sorry, I was just waiting for him to finally see it because I typed it. Sorry.
Yeah, for those of you listening to the audio version of this, she was like gesticulating wildly on the camera, and I'm trying my best to ignore her because I'm like, what the hell is he doing? And then finally he points, and I look down at the chat and he's like, yeah, don't forget Popoff. But it goes to my point that there's all these people, they've been publicly disgraced, debunked, defrocked, everything. But like a cockroach, they keep coming back. Jim Baker is now one of the biggest doomsayer people out there right now, selling. I'm not sure what it is that he had in that spoon there, but I'll tell you this much.
In the bucket.
Yeah, but I'll tell you this much: if what he was trying there that one time was potato soup, I got to tell you this: every potato soup I've had ain't green. I mean, potato and leek, yes, but it wasn't that green. Okay. Joel Osteen, Mr. Megachurch. We had there was the hurricane. Oh, well, there was structural damage to the church. Bullshit. He could have sheltered people. Is not the house of the Lord everyone's house there, Joel, buddy?
Considering that they could probably house a Lakers game in there. I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. Peter Popoff. This guy got debunked, defrocked, whatever, years ago. Now,
in the 80s.
Yeah. Now, to my defense, what I know of him, I got from a YouTuber who's been long silent, a gentleman by the name of DPR Jones, who went after him personally. Now, when I say personally, like he actually contacted his organization. He found ways to, write letters and basically try to, completely curtail him. Now, did any of that help? No, it didn't, because he's still on TV, still doing his magic spirit water stuff. You get this, it's about that big. It's a little bit of spring water that's apparently been blessed. And then you receive it, and then you pay how much you think it is, and it's of course the seed. It's the seed money con. Where you
at least in that case, it's water and not bleach.
In either case, the simple fact is these charlatans who they specialize in fleecing people, and. Well, I'll say this much. Like, as far as P-Robes goes, what he said this time around, I think, was to guarantee or help ensure that he'll be able to preserve the fleece-friendly society that is prevalent right now. Because
that's exactly it.
Because if he rocks the boat too much and his people become disenchanted, and either don't toe the line come the midterms or come the next presidential election, and suddenly, that big chunk of the voter base is gone, and people start voting Democrat or whatever, Trump loses, and suddenly, the right would start looking at him for saying that. He'd be all over Fox News as a traitor.
Yeah, and again, like I said earlier, if they've been yelling and screaming that God chose the president, if all of a sudden they turn tail and say, well, we don't want blood money, well, they can't do that because then, I mean, what the hell was God doing putting this guy into office?
Basically, everything that comes out of their mouths you can translate to, this is what you need to do to survive.
And the rationale behind it is, what can I tell these people that will make them comfortable enough to provide me some of their money because it'll make them think that they're helping me because I need to be sympathetic to them.
But when they give them money, they think they're helping themselves.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Who have we got? Peter Popoff. Creflo fucking Dollar.
Oh,
like
yeah.
Shit like this should have no place in a democratic society, as far as I'm concerned.
And the only reason why is because a properly run democratic society should be properly funding its goddamned education so that this kind of stuff can't have its claws in society.
And you know, I heard something earlier this week about education, actually. And the person I'm referencing here, I won't say their name, but I found it very convenient how they were able to tie back the quality of education in America with the illegal immigrant crisis. It was so 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon, but I won't get into that.
Wait a minute. Wait, before you go past that, are we talking like the same kind of thing where people say that the reason that global warming is up is because the number of pirates on the seven seas is down? Is that the same kind of thing we're talking about?
Not quite so, not quite that much of a reach, but still kind of far-fetched. I mean, the guy was definitely trying to play into his own narrative. But one thing he did say, and again, coming at it from the outside, I don't know if I'd like to find a way to verify this. He said that classically in America, teaching was considered a secondary thing that women would do during the day while, the husband was off doing whatever. So therefore, the profession of teaching was never to be considered a primary source of income. And again, I'm just going off of, I'm kind of paraphrasing what this guy said. And if that is the sentiment that most of America is going under, saying that, teachers are just, that's something a housewife does in the middle of the day, that's very, very telling of why it's so hard to get a few extra bucks to, make your schools better. And, back in the frontier days, okay, fine. In education, okay, fine. You learn your reading, writing, arithmetic. By the time you're out of grade 8 and you're able to run the tractor or plow the fields, okay, that's it. You're done. Get out there and, keep the family thing going. But the thing is, there's been such a huge paradigm shift. Now, I'm not saying a college education is for everybody. Not everybody needs to be, not everybody needs soft skills. You know what I mean? Me, I am not that physical a person. And it turns out that I actually had a thing for computers. I was actually able to work with them. So me taking the college route, that was the best move for me. My nephew, he's in a trade, crane operator. Another person I know, she's in a trade, chef. Another guy I know, he's working on his trade, heavy machinery. I can't remember exactly what it's called, but he's working with construction crews right now. He actually helped build a tunnel that reminds me a lot of the big tunnel in Pittsburgh, except over top of it is a runway. He was part of the crew that helped build that thing. Nobody in that crew, I would think, was college educated. So, but what I'm saying is that while a college degree isn't for everybody, that K-12 part where you can choose after that, I think is pretty paramount. And I think it has to be, it has to be taken a hell of a lot more seriously than what it is right now, because if you don't teach people here at home how to do stuff, pretty soon America is going to be the most powerful nation, the most consuming nation, and I'd say in 1 or 2 more generations, the abject dumbest or stupidest nation on the planet.
Yep.
And that is not something you guys want.
You're right. And I want to grab you from that point. There's a piece that's kind of important to kind of go along with this one, because forgive me, guys, for working it over this way, but there are certain pieces that I know about what most of us have gone through. And again, this is another item that, Bridget, you're the one that's best suited to kind of go through with this one. When you went through your primary education, K through 12, I'm trying to remember, most of that was religiously based, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
All of it, but 6 months. Yes.
Okay. So through that time, for your experience, the best is what you can remember, was the pool of educators mostly female?
Yes. I had one male teacher that taught half the day when I was in 6th grade, but other than that, all the other teachers were female. And then when I got to high school, we had a chemistry teacher that was male, band director who was male, and a literature teacher that was male. All the rest of them were female.
I went through a residential school district on Long Island. I'll even name it. I went through West Babylon Union Free School District. I don't think that that's necessarily a good thing, but whatever. So give you guys an idea. If you want to go ahead and look that up, hey, cool, go right for it. I went through it just to prove that I'm not, talking out my ass. I went to South Bay, which unfortunately burned down, and then they built back up again, which, congratulations, guys. I went to the junior high school, and the high school graduated there. In the K through 5, which was the grammar school, South Bay School, there were 2 male teachers. The gym teacher, who was a dick, because he didn't want us to call him by his name. He wanted us all to call him Coach. There's a story behind that. There's another thing. And the only other male teacher was a 5th grade teacher. After that, starting at the junior high school level, 6th grade, then, and only then, did I have a mix of male and female. Mostly female, but still. Come to high school, it seemed to have evened out a bit. A bit. But then come up to college, and that shifted the opposite direction. Bridget, I'm assuming that for you, when you got to college,
my professors were male.
And that's kind of the thing that I really wonder. Because of the disparity in, what's the word that I'm looking for? In salary, that still goes on. Thank you very much. And the idea that local communities always want to pay less in taxes. And man, what a difference from one side of the border to the other. Huh?
Well, and the thing about if you go to a religiously based college or university, that's an even bigger disparity because women are not supposed to teach men. And so at some of those religious schools, you'll have exclusively male instructors.
And preachers.
Well, and preachers. Well, that's why I said evangelical. Right. Because Methodists will now ordain both.
Isn't it funny that religion came about, just after the dawn of agriculture? Because as far as I'm concerned, with the advent of agriculture, man lost his quote unquote dominant position when he stopped hunting gathering.
Well, yeah, because he no longer had to be the breadwinner because the bread was right there.
Yeah. So like this entire thing was invented just to keep things the way they were. The survival model.
Yeah.
Yeah. Back over in the live chat. And by the way, Prancing, again, thank you. And Stephanie for chiming in. Prancing is saying, my boyfriend's son graduated high school. Now, don't know where this was in particular. I'm assuming here in the US, and I don't want to know anything past a country. I know it's going to make it like really super generalized, but still, again, I'm going with the US because of the wording that's being used. Where his son graduated high school with a 3rd grade reading level, 2nd grade math skills, and his spelling was atrocious. Okay, first off, let's be perfectly fair. Spelling in English is friggin' insane. To the best of my knowledge, English is the only language, I think, that has a spelling contest to find out who can do it best. What does that say about the language? Being that aside for a second.
It's really screwed up.
It is really screwed up.
It's a conformity contest.
No.
It's because we have these really weird exceptions and rules to everything.
Yeah, and you know what? I'm gonna jump in here really quick because I am a lover of words. I've been trying my hand as a writer for a while. And I'll tell you this much. When it comes to anything that's of remotely a official correspondence or something where you would expect a level of professionalism in communication, there is nothing, and I mean nothing, that tweaks my gears more than somebody who can't spell for shit. Especially if you are expected to be a person who is responding to someone via written communication. It's like some business, sends me an email stating, something official, something that I would have to basically take a copy of and use it in, some kind of format as a paper trail or something like that. I would expect that to be properly done.
But analyze that. Where does that ire come from? I mean, is it because people are performing, or like for me, for example, when I see that, it's a lack of empathy. Actually, somebody who just doesn't give a shit about what other people think.
No, I can answer this one. It's annoyance that why the hell couldn't you be taking the extra time to go ahead and say all this without understanding that unfortunately, it may not be laziness on the other person's part so much as they were failed by a system that shouldn't have failed them in the first place. And we can't accept that because that's not the way that it's supposed to be.
Well, let's look at it this way, because I mean, like a language is a common agreement, basically. And when somebody goes through like a common agreement, it means if I say this thing, this is what I mean. This means X. Like it's almost like a definition of terms. So when somebody misspells things or whatever, they're paying no heed to this agreement. Basically, they're reneging in a way.
Yeah. I typed it on our chat. I should really just go ahead and say it out loud. Dallin, forgive me for jumping in on top of you on that one, even though it was kind of posted on freeway. I'm sorry. The reason is that I was reading over what was additionally put, and I know that we're kind of running up on having close up for time in a couple of moments. But Prancing had said, for one thing, I gave up in 6th grade. That in and of itself, for me, as somebody who wanted to be a teacher, that hurts my heart.
Yeah,
because somebody at that age who has been dejected enough that they just want to just not even bother anymore.
Mhm.
That's not the way it's supposed to be. But Prancing had also said, sadly, no one can help him now. His girlfriend found him dead on the couch about 4 years ago from an overdose.
Ugh.
After hearing how the educational system failed him, and in this case you, so, also, I cannot tell you how much that hurts.
Yeah.
I honestly can't. Because we who are older, who are bringing up the next generations, there's supposed to be a social contract where we're supposed to help you to learn to be the people to replace us, to know and understand this. I'm gonna throw it over to you guys at this point because I don't think that I should be talking at the moment.
Yeah. No, I didn't mean to come down hard like that. It's just that to me, when I see somewhat, lackluster quality, like especially from someone who is in an employment position where this kind of stuff is expected, to me it just kills the credibility of what I'm hearing. Like, this got me. I was reading a correspondence between two people, and it was all over email, and one was basically being told that they were no longer going to be part of something. And the email, there was one word: courtesy, was misspelled to curtsy. Now, the recipient of said email managed to get past it. But all I can think of there is you're destroying somebody's career and you don't have the common decency to spell check the fact that you're destroying this person's life. How dare you? And I know I'm not the only one that feels that way. And if the education system continues to fail people, and what's really bad is that, man, I was going through this in the car a little while ago. You were talking, Shujin, about, you're bringing up the next generation. And I once thought that, it should be a parent's duty to raise that child, but it's not a duty. It's not even an obligation. It's an honor. It's an honor that's been bestowed upon people who have been blessed, not in the Christian sense, but blessed to be able to have a child or children. It's like, how can you not look at that child and go, I want the best for them. I want to give them as much as I can, so that let me be the booster. Let me be stage one of the rocket that propels them to their destiny. How can you not want that? But yeah, I lament sort of the failing education system. Like, and we're starting to see it up here too. The Catholic system, we have a Catholic school system up here that is partially funded by non-Catholic tax dollars. Big fight going on with that right now. But unfortunately, a lot of the religious schools, Bridget, you can probably back me up on this one. They've got the money to pay the teachers better, so they could get theoretically the better quality educators. Is that a reasonable thing to say?
Well, the teachers are not paid very well at all in religious schools. I know most of the ones that we had when I was growing up were so poor that, you know, they would wear the same pair of pants day after day after day because they couldn't afford to buy new ones.
Okay. Yeah. Well, that kind of blows my hypothesis out of the water.
Yeah, I mean, they might spend more money on athletic programs or nice gymnasiums or something like that. But as far as like paying the teachers better, no.
No. So
teachers are not getting the money.
So, but still better facilities, which,
yeah.
Wasn't there something about that once, you know, the road to hell is paved with gold or something like that? It's, you ever notice that for a religion that says, you know, you have to suffer to be saved, and you shouldn't have all the good things in life because it's all waiting for you in heaven. And yet here they are, you know, rolling out the, you know, rolling out all the high tech stuff to tempt people to go to that school or that church. You know, it's the marketing department is doing the exact opposite of what the Bible says. So I think it goes a lot to what Joseph was saying. It's, you know, it's the Bible, the books are the accessories. Yeah. It's about the person. It's about the community that's being created.
It's funny because it's one thing to impose a quote unquote survival model, like to have it to be the center. You can be what's the expression in English? God, I'm losing my English. A benevolent dictatorship.
Yeah,
you know, but that kind of system is always prone to abuse. So in the end, like most of what we've seen through history, this kind of system, although when it begins, it may be well-intentioned. At the end, it's serving the benefit of only the leaders, the people organizing it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And by the way, seeing as how we're getting really close on to finishing off at this point, I've just got a couple last items for folks. Bridget, Joey, then Tech. We'll go ahead and give you guys a last couple of seconds. So, Bridget, any last thoughts?
Not really. Just I don't know what the hell's going to happen after this election. I hope that these evil GOP people that are greedy mofos get out of office, but I don't see it happening.
I guess we'll see what happens on that angle. Joey, last item for you.
Well, I don't know. There's a reason why I stopped watching the news. I stopped looking up the news. Wow.
Yeah, me too. I want off this timeline. This timeline sucks.
Yeah.
Somebody stop the planet. I want to get off.
Let's not talk about timelines. The last video that I uploaded for something has got a whole bunch of things with time traveling.
You know, I used to be able to,
later.
You know,
Joseph stole my line.
Joseph, I used to be able to say that in German. Stop the world. I'd like to get off.
Worst case scenario, I'm sure we can find a Firefly equivalent for you. Tech?
No. All right. This message goes out to every American who, at one point or another in their life, decided, hey, I'm going to make a statement. I'm not going to vote. I'm going to tell you exactly what the hell that statement, forget the one that you felt you were going to make. I'll tell you exactly what that statement does make, not voting. When you choose not to vote because you want to state that you don't support either of the candidates, what's actually happening is you not voting gives everybody else power over you, whether you like it or not, because you chose not to vote. Therefore, to anyone out there who chooses again to not vote, I don't want to hear another fucking word out of you people. You people piss me the hell off.
For the record, according to the last election, That would be half of the eligible voters.
Mm-hmm. Screw them.
That's incredible.
It is.
I still remember my altercation with Andrew Torres when you had him on the show, but he said that he attributed everything to the non-voters, and I attributed everything to the evangelicals that came out in droves to vote for Trump. They, following orders, but it's no individual thing. It's a mix of everything, and we have to consider it all. I mean,
well, it just pisses me off that about 18% of the electorate is making the decisions.
Yep. Barack Obama, former President Barack Obama, actually put out a video and he addressed a couple things. Now, some of you listening may not like the guy. Like him or not, he said a couple really obvious things, and that is, if you don't know who to vote for, use Google. Go on to Google, look up your voting area, look who's running, look what their platform is. Do you agree with their platform? No, fine, don't vote for them. Do you agree with another person's platform? No, then don't vote for them. Do you see one that you do agree with? Yeah, vote for that one.
Yeah. And Dallin and Joseph, you guys had just had a little bit of time just before I went ahead and said it, so you'll forgive me if I call you guys for that part at this point, only because we're kind of running out of time. We're running a little bit on the late side. I'm just going to say this. Those that are currently in power, who are making the decision that $100 billion in blood money in order to shed more blood, you want to do something with that money that's worthwhile? You want to play the long game so that you can get to this point? Fine. Here's what our long game should be. Use that money and more into primary education. Put it into teaching kids and the young adults so that they can understand and evaluate for themselves how to understand what's going on around them, how to critically question what's being told to them, what they're seeing, what's being reported. Allow the kids, the younger generation, to learn for their own selves so that by the time they are the ones who are pressing the lever, who are making the marks on their ballots, for their vote, when it comes time for that generation to have a say in what goes on, then they can do the right thing. And they can take everybody that's been holding them down and holding them back and throw them the hell out. And you know what? That's probably going to be the scariest thing in the world, because all these voting districts that are being shut down, all these places where people need to have an ID to vote that are being shut down, you want to go ahead and lie and cheat and steal an election, you can only do that for so long, because as the flying spaghetti monster is my witness, in the information age, as somebody once put it, and Unrenewed Tech will laugh, all is known. Sooner or later, all is known. And when that happens, you damn well better be sure that you've got yourself a cushy amount of money that you can fall back on, because sure as shit, you ain't going to be working in public office again if they've got any say in it. And I, for one, will welcome our younger, better educated, critically thinking, well-spoken, and hopefully well-adjusted younger generation. Because God damn it, they deserve it. As always, everybody, thank you very much for being with us. We hope that you found something worthwhile in all of our perspectives and have something worthwhile to think about for yourselves. I've said it on many occasions. I try to pride myself on being professional. There are times when the stuff just gets the better of me, and there's not a hell of a lot I can do about it. Oh, well. So let me go ahead and thank you all for being with me tonight. Joseph, thank you very much for your time this morning. You have a good, and please stay safe out there, huh?
Oh, yeah. I'm not going out today, so I'll try to avoid any home accidents.
I know a lot of us would greatly appreciate that, myself included.
You
take
all
care of
take
yourself.
care. Yeah, you too, sir.
Thank you. Underhanded Tech, you take care of yourself. Rest well, man, because it sounds like you're pretty close to falling asleep.
Oh, I'm getting there. You guys have a good rest too.
Thank you, man. Joey, thank you very much for your time. You have yourself a restful rest of your morning.
Is what it is, but I do my best.
Appreciate it. Bridget, also, thank you very much for your time. You have yourself a good morning. And plug all your stuff, eh?
Sure. If you want to throw me a friend request, look me up on Facebook, Bridget Fitch. And I'm still trying to get my blog working. I'm having problems with WordPress, but my blog is at bridgetfitch2112.wordpress.com.
And normally I'd say goodnight for Heretic Woman, who's not here. She's, of course, sleeping. But if you want to check up on her, you can check out beyondthetrailerpark.com or over on Facebook at AOABTTP, Atheist on Air, Beyond the Trailer Park. They are typically on tomorrow, meaning Monday, and you can get all the information from over there or just knock on her Facebook page and just say, the fuck are you? It's 2 for the night, at least.
Yeah, I can tell you it's at 7:30 Eastern time. I have no idea what she and Morgan and Beth are going to talk about, but anyway, that's when you can catch it.
Let's see what we can do about that. And of course, Dallin, thank you very, very much for your time. You try to stay warm indoors tonight, this morning.
The temperature's actually been pretty cooperative around here lately, so hopefully it'll stay the rest of the week. I've got some company coming in, so hopefully this time it won't be, all rainy and cold and crap, so that maybe we can actually, go out and do stuff. Of course, I am the steward of the audio version of this show. You can find over at holycrapthevlogcast.com. And once in a while, I'll come up with, I'll have those eureka moments that I want to start typing madly and crazy. You can catch that stuff over at inthewind.yo5.ca.
Appreciate it, man. As I mentioned, all the contact information that you'll need for us and all the links for social stuff are, again, over at holycrapthevlogcast.com. If you would like to subscribe, the link is over on the left side for that. You might need to be real careful about what you click on. WordPress layout for that is a little on the weird side. Sorry, you'll see what I mean when you go looking at it. Long story from over there. But if you'd like to leave a voicemail message for us, you can do that at 859-HCTV-554, 859-4288-554. I'm pretty sure I've gotten a couple of what should have been voice messages over there that I'm pretty sure were robocalls. So, yeah, nice going, guys. Whatever. And, of course, if you'd like to drop us a little bit of monetary support, feel free. Patreon.com/HCTV, because I got super lucky on getting that one. Be that as it may. For any of you that might be students, especially for those of you that might be humanities students, philosophy students, I know that we covered a lot of ground that's not specifically about the topic, but gave a lot of color to how we feel and what we think of the whole topic in general. If you've got something that you would like to let us know about or you'd like to chime in, please, over on the YouTube page, send an email, voicemail, something, because this is one of those times I would really, really like to hear from somebody who is maybe in politics, maybe in government affairs, maybe as a student who's got a piece that they want us to kind of know about on this. But regardless, really do hope that you continue your education as far as you possibly can with as much as you can get out of it. Our best hopes for you. So we will end up seeing you guys, of course, next week. You take very good care of yourselves. Please be safe. And especially here in the English-speaking areas, because Halloween is coming up at the end of the month, please, this is the time of year I remind you, if you're driving at night, please be exceptionally careful if you're coming to a highway overpass. If you see some folks, please be attentive. This is the time of the season when kids love to go pumpkin chucking into traffic. It can be lethal. It has been lethal, so please be aware. If you are driving over one of these overpasses and you see something a little weird, please get in touch with the local constabulary and have them check it out, because there's nothing wrong with being safe that way. Please be careful. So until the next time we get together, everybody, please be safe. I, as always, wish you the peace I no longer have. I wish you the strength that I've learned. I wish you well. And of course, for my lady, as always, 13 plus years on, I am still in love. Matane Fujin. I love you. I miss you. Dream of me. Till the next time we get together, everyone, as always, good night.